fun එක next level කරන dialogue fan blaster.
Tonight, on First at 9 this Tuesday, the 31st of December 2024. New Year's Eve. Sri Lanka awaits the dawn of the new year while the Republic of Kiribati, New Zealand and Australia welcome 2025. Upcoming amendments. Government will amend the Anti-Corruption Act to strengthen legal authorities, says the cabinet spokesman. Also decides to establish investigation units in every ministry to ensure accountability of public institutions. Budget 2025. Government to submit the appropriation bill for 2025 to Parliament for concurrence on the 9th of January. Budget speech scheduled for February 17. Inflation. Sri Lanka's CCPI-based inflation drops further in December.
Chilo Dairy, Sri Lankawama Kiren Perata. Obe Vishwasi dinu Sensodyne, then Langamati pharmacy in Labagata hacker.
Kanta parisang karagattot? Api parisang.
Asian Paints Causeway Aquasafe Vesat Mattu Igadarat Disney.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Sri Lanka's premier primetime English news bulletin, Derana First at 9. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and from around the world. Now, as parts of the world, including Sri Lanka, await the dawn of the new year, the Republic of Kiribati was the first nation to welcome 2025, followed by New Zealand and Australia. Thousands gathered to celebrate New Year's Eve amid firework displays, among other festivities. Sri Lanka, meanwhile, is preparing to welcome the dawn of 2025 in less than 3 hours.
The Republic of Kiribati, a set of small islands in the Pacific Ocean, was the first nation to welcome the new year. The dawn of the new year 2025 was then welcomed by New Zealand, with their main celebrations being held in Auckland. In the meantime, Australia welcomed 2025 with fireworks displays across Melbourne, Sydney and many other areas. Tens of thousands gathered to witness Australia welcome the new year with pomp and circumstance. China, meanwhile, held several celebrations ahead of welcoming 2025. President Xi Jinping and other top leaders attended the 2025 New Year Gala featuring traditional operas at the National Center for Performing Arts in Beijing.
弦歌琴韵迎新岁，古调新腔唱。 As the clock ticks closer to midnight, Sri Lankans too are making preparations to welcome the new year. With large crowds expected to gather at the Goldface Green, Sri Lanka police announced a special traffic plan to minimize congestion in Colombo city on New Year's Eve. Thereby, alternative routes and parking arrangements have been introduced to ease the flow of traffic. As part of the special traffic plan, Sri Lanka police noted that vehicles will not be allowed to be parked in the parking areas located alongside Gold Road, and that all vehicles will be directed to other parking areas and private parking lots. Thereby, vehicles will be directed to fee-based parking lots, namely the Peta Bastian Mawatha Old Manning Market car park, the parking lot situated near the Vimal Dharma Clock Tower, the parking lot in Kompani Vidya at Dawson Street Junction, and the parking lot near the Garmini roundabout in Maradana.
Further, free parking will be made available to those visiting Colombo at the MOD parking lot in the 4th Police Division, the exit lane of Parsons Road in the Kompani Vidya Police Division, parking bays on Gaul Road from Savoy Valavatta to Bagatale Road Junction, the right side of the roads in Cinnamon Gardens Police Division from Reed Mawatha to Thurston Junction and Independence Avenue to Independence Square. Sri Lanka Police further said no vehicles will be permitted to park on sidewalks or main roads in Colombo from 4 p.m. onwards today, adding that legal action will be taken against drivers violating traffic and parking rules. Residents and visitors are advised to plan their routes and parking arrangements accordingly to avoid inconvenience during New Year celebrations across Colombo.
Union Assurance.
Welcome to Cinnamon Life, South Asia's biggest entertainment hub, where awe awaits.
චන්දුරුසුනේ කාගෙන් මන අපේ සිංහ TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්. Sadaharita Plantations Limited, celebrating 22 years of your trust.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Cabinet spokesman Minister Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa stated that the government has decided to amend the Anti-Corruption Act to strengthen legal authorities in the fight against corruption. This decision follows an assessment of the law's shortcomings, which have led to unsuccessful legal proceedings. Meanwhile, commenting on the establishment of investigative units in all ministries, Minister Dr. Jayatissa explained that this initiative aims to streamline the investigation of public complaints while ensuring the uninterrupted delivery of services in ministries. On a separate note, he added that the government is also rectifying mistakes made by the former administration, which caused delays in obtaining essential medicines.
බඳවා ගැනීම නැවත සමාලෝචනය කරනවායි කියලා පහුගිය ආණ්ඩුව වලින් රාජ්‍ය සේවයට සිදු කරපු බඳවා ගැනීම. දිගින් දිගටම යන කතාබහක් තමයි රාජ්‍ය සේවයේ කප්පාදුවක් වෙනවායි.
කප්පාදුවකට අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ මේ බඳවාගත් අය යම් විධිමත් ආකාරයකට ඵලදායීව කාර්යක්ෂම සේවයේ යෙදවීම.
Rather than laying off employees, our goal is to incorporate them more efficiently and productively. As the Health Minister, I can say that some low-grade recruitments were not done to fill vacancies but were influenced by political considerations. Because of this, we are facing challenges when transferring employees. We need to place them systematically to ensure they serve the people of this country effectively. Additionally, some recruitments were not made for essential vacancies. We are planning to review all of this. We will appoint a committee to examine how we can incorporate these employees to increase efficiency while continuing to recruit for essential vacancies. Because of a committee appointed by the former President Ranil Wickremesinghe to stop recruiting, we were unable to fill essential vacancies. We are now correcting that and we will proceed with recruiting people for these critical positions.
ඒ අඩුපාඩු නිවැරදි කරගෙන යනවා. මේ රාජ්‍ය පවත්වාගෙන යාමේදී අත්‍යවශ්‍ය තැන් වලට බඳවා ගැනීම වලට අපි දැන් කටයුතු කරනවා.
ආනයනික සහල් මත පනවලා තියෙන බද්ද නිසා යම් ප්‍රමාණයකට මේ බෙදා හැරීමේ ජාලය තුල ලාභය පිළිබඳ ප්‍රශ්නෙත් එක්ක බෙදා හැරීම හරියට සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ නැහැ කියන එක තමයි ඊයේ දවසෙත් තැන් කීපයකදී අපිට ලැබිච්ච නැගිත චෝදනාව.
The tax on rice is intended to protect local farmers. If we reduce this tax, the farmers will not be able to sell their products at current prices. We are not planning on changing the current controlled prices. If we do so, it would be unfair to the public.
The minister also commented on the decision to establish investigation units in ministries to ensure the accountability of government institutions to the public.
රාජ්‍ය මහජනතාව වෙනුවෙන් පවත්වාගෙන යාමේදී දේශපාලන අධිකාරියත්
When running a state, the political authority and state employees must work together towards common goals. Several amendments will be published soon to facilitate this. Some acts are over 100 years old, and our Ministry of Justice is currently working to amend them. However, if there are employees who are not ready to change in line with the people's mandate, it is about them that people are complaining. Most of these complaints relate to previous administrations. To address this inconvenience, we are establishing a separate unit to handle these complaints. This will be more convenient for the public. Some perpetrators were released after complaints were filed by the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption. The officers investigating these cases have highlighted that the investigations were unsuccessful due to shortcomings in the law. We need to correct these shortcomings. There are also many allegations of corrupt activities involving relatives and friends of politicians, both within the Commission and the CID. This amendment is being made to streamline the investigative process.
දූෂණ පිළිබඳ පැමිණිලි රාශියක් තියෙනවා. අල්ලස් කොමිසමේ තිබෙනවා, CID එකේ තියෙනවා. ඒකට පහසුවක් වෙන්න සහ ඒ කාර්යක්ෂම කරගන්න තමයි මේ 50 සංශෝධනයත් අරගෙන එන්නේ.
ඖෂධ හිඟේ නිමා වෙයිද මේ වෙන විට?
ඖෂධ හිඟය මුළුමනින්ම එකරයින් නිමා කරන්න බෑ.
We cannot resolve the drug shortage completely overnight. there have been several delays in recent months. One issue is that the Medical Supplies Division did not properly scrutinize the necessary data. With the data available, they could have placed estimated orders to bring in the required stock, but they did not do so. Additionally, local producers did not receive orders on time. Permission was not granted to joint ventures between the State Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Corporation and local drug manufacturers. There were also issues with the process of sending medicines from manufacturers. There was also a delay in the National Medicines Regulatory Authority. We are addressing these issues one by one. It will take time, but we are taking measures to ensure the supply of essential drugs without shortages.
හැකි පමණින් ඉංගේකින් තොරව ලබා දීමට අපි මැදිහත්වමින් ඉන්නවා.
මම හිතන්නේ පහුගිය රජයේ රාජ්‍ය ආයතනය ප්‍රතිව්‍යුහගත කිරීම ගැන ලොකුවට කතා කරා. ඇත්තට මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ මේ ප්‍රතිව්‍යුහගත කර?
The previous government formed committees to explore ways to separate SOEs from the state and sell them. Our first approach is to retain the SOEs within the state and use them for development purposes. Only if that fails will we consider alternative options.
සංවර්ධන දායක කරගන්න එක. ඒක උත්සාහය අසාර්ථක වුණොත් තමයි දෙවනි පියවර ගැන සාකච්ඡා කරන්න වෙන්නේ.
IMF එකේ කිසි බලපෑමක් තියෙනවද?
අපි IMF එකත්
We are in discussions with the IMF. Some relief measures are being provided after discussions within the framework set by the IMF. Their conditions are also flexible. If they are confident in the management of the state's income and expenses, we can make adjustments as necessary. Now, government is to submit the appropriation bill for 2025 to Parliament for concurrence following clearance from the Attorney General. Meanwhile, a committee is to be appointed comprising main stakeholders and policy specialists in the field of power and energy to submit recommendations for suitable amendments for the Sri Lanka Electricity Act. With that, let's review these and other cabinet decisions made during the week. Government is to present the appropriation bill for the financial year 2025 to Parliament for approval. The bill has received clearance from the Attorney General and subsequently the Cabinet of Ministers granted approval for it to be tabled in Parliament. Meanwhile, the Central Bank is to submit a report to Parliament on the deviation of headline inflation from the inflation target in accordance with the provisions of the Central Bank Act. According to the agreement on the monetary policy framework under Section 26(1) of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka Act No. 16 of 2023, the Central Bank is responsible for maintaining the quarterly surface inflation measured by the Colombo Consumer Price Index at a level of 5%. The quarterly averages of surface inflation in the second and third quarters of the year 2024 have been 1.4% and 0.8% respectively, which are below the lower margin of the inflation target. A Public Investment Supervision and Evaluation Committee comprising 11 members is to be appointed to overcome various issues in the implementation of development projects and programs and propose measures that should be taken for the management and supervision of such projects. The decision follows the observation that expected development targets have not been reached in the past decade due to a lack of anticipated results and returns commensurate with the costs incurred from public capital investment. Sri Lanka will submit the first biennial transparency report relevant to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Sri Lanka has been party to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change since 1993 and the Paris Agreement since 2016 and is obliged to submit the report before the end of this year. Government will implement a pledge loan scheme under subsidized interest rates up to a maximum of 50 million rupees for small and medium-scale paddy mill owners with a maximum daily milling capacity of 25 metric tons to purchase paddy during every growing season from the 2024-25 Maha season. The scheme was first implemented in accordance with a cabinet decision taken on the 14th of August 2023, and government has observed that the program has achieved considerable progress in previous seasons. A bill is to be drafted to amend the Public Officers Security Ordinance based on the report of the Officers Committee appointed to identify the necessary amendments to institute a complete revision of the ordinance. The Public Officers Security Ordinance enables the collecting of a bond from public officers to recover the losses that could be incurred by the officers in performing their duties, and the proposed revision aims to enable this process to be completed in a simple and timely manner. A committee is to be appointed comprising main stakeholders and policy specialists in the field of power and energy to submit recommendations for suitable amendments for the Sri Lanka Electricity Act No. 36 of 2024. The decision follows the observation that provisions of the Electricity Act, proposed institutions and roles and responsibilities of the said institutions could fail to fulfill expected objectives, and as a consequence an extra burden will fall on the power industry and customers in creating a secure and clean power sector. Sri Lanka will award the procurement for 900,000 1-gram vials of the Marapanam vaccine used to treat acute bacterial infections to Pakistan's MS Genix Pharma Private Limited. Meanwhile, the procurement for 9,000 40-milligram vials of the Tenectoplas vaccine used to prevent heart attack-related deaths is to be awarded to Sri Lankan firm MS ABC Pharma Services Private Limited. In the meantime, the contract to construct a 2-story steel structure warehouse for the State Pharmaceutical Corporation is to be awarded to MS Dockyard General Engineering Services Private Limited.
Fast track your career from O-levels with eSoft.
ඩයබටිසෝල් සීනි වලින් පරිස්සම් වන ඔබට අමතක නොවන පෝෂණය. ප්‍රයිම් ගෲප් ලංකාවේ ප්‍රථම වතාවට හඳුන්වා දෙන ලෑන්ඩ් ලීසින් ලේසියෙන් මීටමක්.
Single 1111 up to 60% off from the 11th November to the 17th of November.
Kalani wire kisi ginnak naha.
කිසි ගින්නක් නෑ. Kalani Fire Shield Wire.
This season get up to 25% discount on Arpico Foam and Spring mattresses available at Arpico Supercenters.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Meanwhile, the debate on the appropriation bill for the year 2025 has been scheduled from the 18th of February to the 21st of March next year. The Committee on Parliamentary Business has decided to present the appropriation bill to Parliament for the first reading on the 9th of January. The second reading of the appropriation bill or the budget speech will take place on the 17th of February, while the second reading debate is scheduled to be held for 7 days from the 18th of February until the 25th. Subsequently, the vote on the second reading of the bill will be held at 6 p.m. on the 25th of February. The committee stage debate on the appropriation bill is scheduled to be held for 19 days, including 4 Saturdays, from the 27th of February to the 21st of March. Finally, the vote on the third reading of the appropriation bill will be held on the 21st of March at 6 p.m. Ahead of the new year, Sri Lanka Customs reported that as of 12 noon today, a total of 79,000 metric tons of imported rice have been cleared through customs. Customs media spokesperson and Additional Director General Sivali Arugada said that of the 79,000 metric tons, 31,000 metric tons are raw rice, while 48,000 metric tons are pre-parboiled rice. Additionally, this stock includes 780 metric tons of rice imported by the Sri Lanka State Trading Corporation. General Shavendra Silva, who rendered a tremendous service to Sri Lanka for over 4 decades, retired from his position as Chief of Defence Staff as well as from active service in the Sri Lanka Army today. A ceremony to commemorate General Shavendra Silva's retirement was held at the BMICH. General Silva rendered a significant service during the humanitarian operation against terrorism as the commander of the 58th Division and later when Sri Lanka was battling the COVID-19 pandemic. He is also the most decorated officer of the Sri Lanka Army. In the meantime, the newly appointed commanders of the Sri Lanka Navy and Army assumed duties today. Accordingly, Major General Lasantha Rodrigo assumed duties as the 25th commander of the Sri Lanka Army. Further, Rear Admiral Kanchana Banagoda took over duties as the 26th commander of the Sri Lanka Navy. Global Ambassador for Peace Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar highlights the need of raising peace education among the youth to ensure that a better future and a peaceful society is created. The Global Ambassador for Peace made these remarks at the inaugural event commemorating the newly declared World Meditation Day at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Speaking at the same event, Deputy Permanent Representative of Sri Lanka to the United Nations, Sugishwara Gunaratne, expressed his hope that meditation practices would inculcate peace within individuals, which would ultimately lead to building of a sustainable and peaceful world.
The first commemoration of the newly declared World Meditation Day was held on the 21st of December at the United Nations headquarters in New York, facilitated by the permanent representative of India, Parvathaneni Harish, with the participation of the President of the UN General Assembly, Philemon Yang. During the event, the keynote address was delivered by Global Ambassador for Peace, Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar.
Meditation transcends borders, faith, traditions, and time, offering each of us the opportunity to pause, to listen, and to connect with our inner selves. When we meditate, we quiet our minds, center our thoughts, and cultivate compassion and respect. This personal transformation has a ripple effect, inspiring harmony in our families, our communities, and beyond. It effectively lays the foundation for peace in ourselves and towards our surroundings. And I can say this with a lot of pride because our world now needs peace more than ever before. The tensions in the world require that we embrace peace and anything that brings peace.
It was on 6th December that the United Nations General Assembly adopted the resolution declaring 21st of December as World Meditation Day. My country, Sri Lanka, was pleased to have initiated this proposal along with Liechtenstein, Andorra, Mexico, Nepal, and India. The resolution itself was co-sponsored by 71 countries from all geographical regions. This speaks volumes on the universal applicability and acceptance of the different techniques and practices which we call meditation. And today there is universal acceptance of the benefits of these practices that come under the term meditation. My country, Sri Lanka, is a proud inheritor of this tradition. Both the clergy and the laymen in Sri Lanka continue to propagate these practices for mental health and physical well-being, to relieve stress and anxiety, which is a part of modern living, as well as to attain wisdom and spiritual enlightenment. It is our collective wish that in a world that seeks peace and harmony among the tragedy of conflicts, meditative practices would provide the essential ingredient in creating peaceful individuals, which is the fulcrum to building a sustainable and peaceful world.
The ancient Indian practice of dhyana or meditation goes back thousands of years to yogic traditions and holds the key to achieve inner calm and attain harmony between mind and body, thought and action, humanity and the external environment. In our current global landscape, marked by escalating conflicts and deep-seated mistrust, meditation emerges not merely as a personal practice, but as a powerful instrument of diplomacy. Meditation helps us to cultivate empathy, deep self-awareness, capacity to understand complex situations with greater clarity. We must remember that inner happiness, peace, and harmony is a natural state of being, and meditation offers us a practical pathway for achieving this.
There is so much talk about peace and security, and of course, United Nations have a lot of discussion about peace and security. I would say if every nation which is really engaged in procuring for the security of the nation pays a little bit attention to bring peace to individuals, I tell you, world would be a much better place. So I urge all the nations here to put a little more attention in peace education. Let us educate our young people how to relax, how to get rid of tensions on a daily basis, how to manage their negative emotions and be centered. This is part of education that we need to bring to our population. Peace and inner security are provided by meditation. Meditation can bring inner security and also inner peace, which would reflect in our life in society to be a better, more happier society.
Meanwhile, the World Meditates with Gurudev event held on the same day set new records, earning places in the Guinness Book of World Records, the Asia Book of Records, and the World Records Union. Organized by the Art of Living Foundation, the event brought together nearly 8.5 million people across the globe for meditation online, offline, and through TV broadcasts globally.
Welcome back. In business news, Sri Lanka's overall rate of inflation as measured by the Colombo Consumer Price Index remained in negative territory for the fourth consecutive month, recording a value of negative 1.7% in December 2024, a slight increase compared to negative 2.1% in November. According to the latest report by the Department of Census and Statistics, the CCPI for all items this month was recorded as 191.7, which is an increase compared to last month's index value of 189.4. This year, the year-on-year inflation of the food group increased to 0.8% in December 2024 from 0.6% in November, while the year-on-year inflation of the non-food group increased to negative 3% this month from a negative 3.3% in November. 312,836 Sri Lankans left for employment opportunities overseas in 2024, setting a historic record for the highest number of Sri Lankans migrating for work, surpassing the previous record set in 2022. This shows a considerable growth compared to the number of Sri Lankans who left the island seeking employment in 2023, which stood at 297,584. Over the past 6 years, spanning from 2019 to 2024, 1.3 million Sri Lankans have pursued employment abroad. Of the Sri Lankans who departed for foreign employment in 2024, 185,162 were men, while 127,674 were women. Kuwait emerged as the top destination for Sri Lankan workers in 2024, with 77,546 individuals securing employment there. The United Arab Emirates followed as the second most popular destination, attracting 51,550 workers. 7,098 Sri Lankans found work in South Korea, 9,665 in Israel and 8,665 in Japan, marking a noticeable increase compared to previous years. As of the end of November 2024, Sri Lanka received nearly $6.5 billion in foreign exchange from its expatriate workforce. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's year-on-year earnings from merchandise exports declined marginally by 0.5% to $994 million in November 2024. Central bank data depicts that this was primarily driven by reductions in mineral and industrial exports, despite an increase in agricultural exports. In the meantime, the expenditure on merchandise imports increased by 7.7% to $1.49 billion in November 2024. Foreign investments in the government securities market recorded a net inflow of $20 million in November 2024. However, cumulative foreign investments in the government securities market recorded a net outflow of $197 million during the time period spanning from January to November 2024. The data showed that the gross official reserves increased to $6.5 billion by the end of November this year, which includes a swap facility from the People's Bank of China and purchases of foreign exchange from the domestic foreign exchange market by the central bank for $327 million during the month. The Colombo Bourse ended the last trading session of 2024 in green, aided by price gains in IT and financial sector stocks. The all share price index climbed 0.74% to settle at 15,944.61 points, while the S&P Sri Lanka 20 climbed 1.01% to end at 4,862.10 points. During 2024, the ASPI and S&P SL20 gained 49.7% and 58.5% respectively, while recording an average daily turnover of 2.23 billion rupees. Turnover for the day was recorded at 7.7 billion rupees, with the banking sector as the top contributor. Foreign investors closed as net buyers, purchasing shares worth 355.9 million rupees. And with that, here's a look at the rupee exchange rate for the day. The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation announced a fuel price revision with effect from midnight tonight. Price of a litre of kerosene is reduced by 5 rupees to 183 rupees. The price of other fuels will remain unchanged. That's all the news for tonight. We'll see you once more in the new year. Have a good night.